So this is what I imagine. They get done with the first horrible bosses and they go to the three main actors and they're like, "Hey guys, you just made a really successful, funny movie. How would you like to make another one?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, let's do that. That'd be great." And then they're like, "Here's the thing, though. The director on the last one. We're not going with him. He is the guy that has directed several episodes from really successful sitcoms for years. Yeah, not going with that guy anymore. No good. But really great news. We managed to land the director from That's My Boy. Yeah, the Adam Sandler movie. Horrible Bosses 2 is directed by Sean Anders and it stars Jason Bateman, Jason Sudeikis, Charlie Day, Christoph Waltz, Chris Pine, and Jennifer Aniston. Now, in this film, these guys have come up with a product. They want to go into business for themselves, and they come upon Christoph Waltz and Chris Pine, who plays his son, and they own a big company and they offer to distribute their product. But in the course of all of this, there's some stuff that goes wrong, and so these guys have to find a way to get out of the situation that they're in. And I don't want to spoil anything else, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So the movie starts off, and the one thing that I like initially is just seeing these three guys back together again. I mean, they are really a great comedic team. They all have these different personalities, and they all play off each other really well. And it was great seeing them back together. They're what made the first film really good, and it was just awesome seeing them in these roles again, and I was anxious to see what they were going to do with it. Jennifer Aniston also reprises her role, and she pretty much does the exact same thing in this film that she did in the last one, so no real surprises there. Newcomers, though, are Christoph Waltz and Chris Pine. I have to say, Chris Pine absolutely stole the show for me. I thought he was probably the best part of the film, which really surprised me. I think he's a really good actor, and he had a really wide range of emotions that he had to convey throughout this comedic film. But on top of that, he brought some of the best physical comedy in the entire movie. Some of the scenes he did were just fantastic, and I probably laughed as hard in some of those scenes as I did in at any other point in the movie, and I thought he was fantastic. Unfortunately, though, that's where things start to go off the rails a bit because Christoph Waltz, I think, is a great actor. I think he's fantastic. I've seen him in a lot of things that I've been very impressed by, but in this, I feel like he was really underutilized. His character is particularly one-sided, and there's really not a lot to him, and you don't see much from him throughout the film. And I just think if you're gonna bring Christoph Waltz into a film like this, why not use him? But I just was really disappointed with his character as a whole, and I felt like they didn't really know what to do with him throughout the movie. Now, I'll give them credit with the story because they did try to do something different. They could have taken these three guys and had them all working for new bosses that were terrible, but they tried to do something different. They tried to come at it from a different direction, which is commendable. Unfortunately, it just didn't work, and it had potential. The main problem is that the jokes just aren't as funny. It seems like they had this idea of a direction they wanted to go with a lot of the comedy, and they just went there with everything that they had. And some of the things in the last film that were really good were kind of lost. The dialogue wasn't as good, although there were some good moments, it just wasn't as clever as the last film. A lot of the physical comedy of the last film wasn't involved in this film. And, at the end of the day, it just did not work anywhere near as well. I didn't laugh anywhere near as hard as I did in the first film, and it was disappointing. And I think the main reason for that is what I said in my opening. You had a director in the first film that had done a lot with comedies, with situational comedies that are successful, and you've got a guy that has experience with that kind of stuff. And then you don't bring him back, and you bring in another guy that's done some rather crappy comedies, and then you're kind of surprised that this is the result. Unfortunately, this film is just nowhere near as good as its predecessor, as is often the case with sequels. Despite some great performances by Chris Pine, and I thought Sudeikis and Bateman and Day were also really good, but it just wasn't enough to overcome the lack of funny in this film. I'm going to give Horrible Bosses a 2.5 out of 5. It's just not all that funny. It's okay, and there's some good moments, but it's, maybe one that you rent instead of going to see. So what did you think of Horrible Bosses 2? Leave a comment below and let's talk about it. And as always, click right here if you like what you see, and subscribe to even more of me.